Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Maniacal Mini. Today we are working on the Knight Venator from the Mighty Heroes box set for Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. As you can see, I primed him black. I have all these pieces separated, the bird, the wings, and I have him already set up on his base. So we're going to start off now with some black metal from Scale 75 metal. This is part of my ongoing review through each episode. I didn't want to do a specific, just review video, so I'm going to be popping it into all my different tutorials as we go. I love this metal set. I'm not very good at non-metallic metal, plus I also don't like the way it looks, so I'm a huge fan of pure metallics. This set is absolutely awesome. They have a ton of different colors in it that you can work with to create different tones and shadows and shades and everything like that, which is really awesome. So look out for more as we go through. I'll be using a couple of different ones and just adding my little, bits of information that I think will be helpful to people thinking about purchasing these. So hold on one sec and we will just get to another step in a second. So the next color that I have here is going to be Trash Metal, also from Scale 75, in the same metal set. With this one, I'm also bringing it through the airbrush, but I'm going to be a lot more selective about where I'm placing this. I'm going to try and bring those areas a little bit more tight-knit, so we can see the shine and the different variations in the shadows, as we turn it around and look at it from different angles. So I'm just going to set up a preferred front look angle on this one, so I'm focusing on mainly the highlighted areas that would face you when you're looking at them from a specific direction, although this will apply to everything, so the whole thing will tie together really nicely and still look pretty dope. So we're going to pick it up in another step in a second. So, bringing in a little bit of a wash step, I took some Drakenhof Nightshade and mixed it down with a little bit of water to thin it out so it's not as strong when we apply it, because the last thing we want is to add too much and have it all muted and shadowed out, which we definitely don't want. So as you can see here, I'm just mixing it together with the water on my wet palette, getting a good amount on the brush, but enough that I can control. You can see here exactly pretty much how it's not going to change colors too much that you can see in the video, but if you're doing it in person, you'll definitely be able to tell that tone. So we're going to just coat the entire model in this, focusing mainly on the silver parts, but don't be afraid if you get it on a couple of the other parts. We are going to paint over everything else that's not silver, obviously, in future steps. So I'll leave you guys there for a sec. Alright, so we are bringing in some Trash Metal from Scale 75 again. This time we're switching over to a brush. For this one I'm using a Green Stuff World No. 2 brush, Kolinsky. I'm just going to be reinforcing those highlights once more, just in case, so we can clean up some of that area that we had laid down with the shadow tones, just to reinforce, give those nice bright poppy looks. So we're going to leave it there. I'll let you guys finish this one out, and I'll see you in another second. Okay, so we're going to start moving into the other metallics. That's just going to be the gold. So I'm starting out with Dwarven Gold from the Scale 75 Golden series, another paint series that I absolutely love. Every color just goes perfectly when you're trying to build up different layers and tones and highlights and shades and all that stuff. They have everything that you need in that box. Highly recommend all of them if you can. If not, consider picking up one at a time. I would have to say that the Steel series is definitely the #1 priority that I suggest you guys do, and from that point doing Copper and Gold if you follow along with my videos, or if you just like the style of the metallics that you see on screen. So as you can see, I'm just covering the pauldrons on the sides of his shoulders. This is going to be for a couple other decorative pieces on his handle blade. As you can see coming up in just a second, I'll let it play out for you. As you can see, we are going to start speeding it up. I'm going to move into the scabbards on his back. There's a couple of, decorative pieces that are hanging off. We're going to cover some of that area for the holster for his other little dagger in the back of him. And just one little other thing is the lantern that he's holding in his hand. We are going to coat that in this dwarven gold as well. So we're going to move into a little bit of a wash step right now. This is Reikland Flesh Shade from Games Workshop. We're just going to coat this over all of the gold that we just laid down. We just want a little bit more definition for all those areas because we lost obviously a lot of that with the airbrush and then painting over it with the gold. So we're just going to reestablish some of that, give it a little variation in tones. I'll let you guys finish that out and we'll pick it up in a sec. So we're going to add a highlight step now. This is Viking Gold, which is the next step up in the Scale 75 Golden series. I'm just adding this to the topmost highlight areas, along the ridges, along the flatter areas on the lantern, stuff like that. So we're going to move on to a whole nother section in just a second, so I'll let you guys finish this out. Alright, moving into the leather, the straps, the parchment, and all that good stuff. We're starting out with Xandru Dust. This is going to be for all of the scrolls that are flowing down and actually lifting him up off of the base. This is a really good parchment color, especially when we're going to add a wash color in subsequent steps, and it'll add a lot more definition to it. You guys can do a couple more steps if you want to, add a couple of highlights here, maybe define the shadows just a little bit more, but for this I'm just going to go with a simple 2 coats of this and then a wash over the top of that, and hopefully later, once we add the streak and grime and a little bit of weathering steps, it'll help bring out that scroll look just a little bit more. So I'll let you guys finish this one out. Introducing the wash for those scrolls is the Seraphim Sepia from Games Workshop. I don't really use this one a lot, but I figured I didn't want to go too brownish because we're going to be adding a lot more brown later, so I went with this one, more of a skin tone, flesh, color look to it. So we're going to use that for the scrolls. It'll infill all the writing and indentation on it, which will make it pop out and look really cool. So we're going to move on to the leather in just a sec. Alright, so we're going to be working on the leather now, starting out with Rhinox hide for our base coat. I will be doing another 2 coats of this just to make sure that we have a nice even surface to work off of for our highlight step. That's going to be coming up in a minute. So we're just going to be laying this down all over his waistband. You can see that there is some leather straps hanging down with a little emblem on the bottom of them. So we're going to be hitting all of those and any other leather that we see on the model, which shouldn't be much, just those couple spots. But there is this little tricky one that's kind of hanging off his leg that, I kind of missed it first, so make sure you guys don't either. You can see it right there where my brush is. Just make sure you don't miss that one because I definitely did it first. So we're going to move on to the highlight step. Alright, so we are going to be moving on to our highlight step now for our leather. For that I chose Steel Legion Drab from Games Workshop. For this I thinned it down to about a glaze consistency, and as you can see, if you can see, I am adding just little bits of scratches here and there to the edges of it, popping in some scratches on where those highlights would land on the topmost edges, just adding a little bit more variation, making it look a little more natural, like scratched up leather, kind of old, kind of dirty, worn, but it'll tie all together later. Once we add our streak and grime over the top of all this, it'll kind of even out those brown tones on the leather, as well as everything else on the model, because it'll kind of tint it its own kind of sort of grimy brown. So I'm going to leave you guys there to watch, and we're going to do a couple more steps. Okay, so I brought back in that Viking gold from scale 75. As I touched on earlier, but to bring it up again, they have these little emblems on the bottoms of their leather that's hanging off their waistband. So we're just going to tie that in with the rest of the gold. I'm not going to bother doing, the dwarven gold with the wash and then this on top. I think because of the angle that these are sitting at, they're perfect just going straight into that Viking gold. So I'll leave it there and let you guys catch up in another sec. Our last step for this act is going to be putting some corn red down on this little flowy hair piece that he's got coming off the back of him here. We're not going to add any other highlights or anything like that to it. We're just going to let the weathering steps later take their toll on it and see what we end up with, which should be pretty cool. Just more of a muted down red, maybe a little bit more natural looking. So I'll leave you guys there to pick it up in the next act. Alright, so moving on to our bird now, I'm bringing back out the airbrush, and I'm putting in a little bit of magic blue from Vallejo Game Air. From this point, I'm going to blend a couple more colors. It's just easier to do this with the airbrush so that it looks a little bit more natural and seamless. We're going to be moving into a purple step. The only part that you won't get to see, because the footage got a little messed up, is the electric blue that I pulled in a little bit later. You'll be able to see it in the video because of the differentials in the blue, but I just hit his head and the tops of his wings with that. But I'll let you guys watch there, and we'll pick it up for the purple in a second. Alright, so again, through the airbrush, we have Alien Purple. This is, again, from Vallejo Game Air. As you can see, I'm just hitting the bottom of the feathers on his wings, as well as portions of the tail. We're going to get that really nice, seamless transition between the blue and the purple. And then, like I said in the last step, unfortunately, I don't have the video for it, but the last final step for him, as far as the airbrush, would have been that electric blue that would have hit the top of his head. So I'll let you guys finish watching out this part. We're going to do a couple more details on this bird before we move on to our final act. Alright, so I'm grabbing some Corvus Black now from Games Workshop, and as you can see, I am just lightly filling in the beak on his face. I'm going to dot a little bit in his eye to set that up for the next step. I'm also going to hit the talons that are on his wings. There is also some on the bottom underneath for his feet, so just don't forget about those ones as well. Okay, we're going to grab a little bit of nuclear white from Green Stuff World, and as you can see, I am very gently bracing myself and dotting in nice and gently. We don't want it to spill out and hit some parts we don't want to, but if we do, it's okay. There's an easy fix. We can just drop in a little bit of black around it and fix the iris on the eyeball. So we're going to be moving into our final touch-up act before we hit our weathering and finish out this video. Okay, so the only step we have now for our final touches is setting up our OSL effect. For that, I'm bringing back in our nuclear white, and as you can see, I'm going to hit the fans all around him, all these parts that are sticking out, spiking out. That includes his wings as well, and the top piece on his head. We're going to hit that with that nuclear white. We are not going to hit this with the OSL effect, but we just want to add this in just so you know where that white is coming from and why we did it, just to add a little bit more variation and to have that pop factor of the white against everything else. So we'll move on in a sec. Okay, as you can see, I painted the little thing inside of his lantern white before I'm hitting it now with the Liquitex white ink through the airbrush, just to do a little bit of cone of light around where that glow is going to get set up. We want to enforce that pretty well. We're also going to do the same glow on the blade that he's holding as well. I did mess up a little bit on this OSL. I will warn you now, it doesn't look the best. I know what I did wrong, and we'll plan on rectifying that in future videos with OSL, but I wanted to throw it in here anyway, just to let you guys know that I do mess up a lot. So the most important thing is fixing it, which I think we pulled it off in this video pretty well, but definitely something I'm going to be keeping my eye on. So as you can see, I'm just coming in with that green from Intensity Scale 75, really bright poppy green. Just be really careful about that overspray. You don't want to hit that white that we laid down on the spikes and everything like that, so just be extra careful as you're coming in with this intensity, and we will finish it up there. Alright, as we move into the final stretch of our video here, we are into our weathering steps. So I'm taking some streaking grime from AK Interactive, and we are going to liberally coat this all over the entire model. Don't worry, we're just going to let it sit and stain a little bit. You can take it off earlier if you don't want too much of a tint difference in what you're working with. You could leave it on even more to darken it down even further, but for us, I'm going to leave it about 5 minutes and then I'm going to come back to it. So I'll leave you guys there for a sec. Alright, so he's looking pretty good right now. We're going to take our Q-tip, soak it down with some mineral spirits, and we are going to very lightly start working this streaking grime off of the model, leaving it in those deepest recesses and allowing it to tint all the metallics and the white and pretty much every other thing that we've laid down on here. I don't really use this how you are supposed to do it, which is streaking. I like to pretty much just coat the entire model on it, give him a really dirty, worn, old look, and then just call it a day from that point. But you will see in a couple of future videos where we will use it in its proper use. So keep an eye out for that video coming up in the future. We're also going to be showing a couple of other new techniques and a couple of different things coming up in future tutorials as well. So I just want to let you guys know that, and I will keep letting this video play out, and we'll see where we end up. Alright, so we are on to our rusts and blood. So our first thing is going to be medium rust liquid pigment from Green Stuff World. We're just going to be coating all the rivets, letting this soak into some of the deep recesses just around the silver parts of the armor. We have some weathering steps for the gold in a little bit, but for right now we're just going to be focusing on all the silver. So again, adding this around the rivets, any of the recesses that you can see, and we're going to build that up in another step in just a second with a lighter rust color that'll go over some of the areas that we're putting down now just to give them a little bit more vibrancy, but this will be our main rust color, so feel free to apply it liberally, but at the same time think about where you're placing it so that we don't have any awkward look. Bringing in that very light rust liquid pigment from Green Stuff World as well. Like I said, we are just going to be popping this onto a couple of the areas that we already hit with that medium rust, leaving some more of the medium rust in the recesses than this, but adding a little bit more vibrancy to that rust color. So I'll let you guys finish this one out and we'll move on to another one. Our final pigment is going to be that turquoise oxide liquid pigment. That is going to be for all the gold areas, just dropping it again into the recessed areas, kind of dragging it out a little bit to look like it's, dripping down from all the rain pooling and collecting on there, just making it look really cool, adding some very, very awesome variations between the golds and the turquoise, so it'll look pretty freaking dope. So we're going to finish that out. We're going to add some blood texture, finish up this base in the next couple steps, and that'll be the end of this video. So I'll let you guys finish this out and we'll keep it up. Okay, so normally I am a spatter and pray type of guy when it comes to blood, because the more spatter and blood, the cooler I think it kind of looks. For this one though, I really wanted to kind of tell a story where this guy was, just getting beaten and bruised, but also, taking out some enemies. So we're going to be very selective with where we're adding all these blood steps. As you can see, I'm just dropping some along, the side of one of his eyes to look like some blood's pouring out of that spot. A couple spots on his chest where, maybe he was hitting enemies and the blood splattered up against his chest. Obviously some on his sword because he's cutting down a lot of people with that. And then we're going to move on to one more step for this one before we finish up the base and wrap it up. Okay, so we're bringing in that True Blood from Green Stuff World. This is going to have the same concept that we did with the Rust. Obviously, we laid down all that coagulated blood, so we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be touching up areas, putting this over some of those areas of coagulated blood, not covering the whole thing, but just to add a little bit more variation in the colors of blood that are sitting on them. As you can see, that True Blood is a lot brighter. It'll definitely add a lot more of a natural look to it, which is definitely really cool. So we only have one more step to go, and we will call this video a wrap. Alright, so we have some Astro Granite and Astro Granite debris for the base. I'm laying down the Astro Granite first, followed up by a couple patches of that Astro Granite debris, just to give it a little bit more variation in the gravel tones of the actual look of the base. But I'm thinking he's looking pretty dope. I was a little worried about that OSL when we were doing it, but it tied together pretty well. I think we got a pretty cool look going on. So this was an awesome model to paint. I've already painted a couple of other ones from this set. I don't think we're going to do any more from this set, but we might have a couple to do with the Silver Tower box set itself. Thank you guys so much for checking this video out. I really appreciate all your support. I noticed that we passed 600 subscribers. That is awesome. Thank you guys so much. We might be doing a giveaway video for that, so stay tuned for that one, where I will paint up a figure and somebody will win it. So that'll be awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like and subscribe if you do enjoy this and you are not currently, and we will see you in the next one. Happy painting.